Hey, everybody, and welcome to Banfield. If news is, just all the stuff that's out of the ordinary, or stuff that affects a lot of people, or stuff that just makes you sit up and take notice, then much of the country just witnessed on Capitol Hill a bunch of news. The Select Committee investigating the riotous assault on the Capitol on January 6th, 2021, held an unprecedented primetime hearing, designed, in the words of one member, to, quote, tell the story of a conspiracy to overturn the presidential election and block the transfer of power, end quote. I call that news. And NewsNation covered it. The broadcast networks covered it. And most cable news outlets covered it, wall to wall. But not all of them. Fox News stuck with its usual programming lineup, which it is perfectly free to do, but it also means that a big chunk of the national primetime viewership, and thus the electorate, will be less informed about an event of national historical importance. In a word, big news. I'm joined now by Phil Bump. He is the national correspondent for The Washington Post. I'm also joined by NewsNation political editor Chris Stirewalt. Welcome to both of you. So, gentlemen, let me begin with this. And Phil, I'll come to you first. Your reaction to the notion that a lot of Americans saw those riveting 2 hours plus, but not all of them. The people who turned into Fox News saw no lead up because Jesse Waters' show was doing other news, like Nancy Pelosi's husband's alleged DUI. And then when Sean Hannity took over, he didn't take the hearings live.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's disgraceful, and I think it's embarrassing. I think it's embarrassing to be something that purports to be a news organization that acts that way. And it's not only that they didn't carry it. It's that they, for months, have been ignoring the work of the committee. They've been ignoring new developments in the story about what happened on January 6th. They've, and I've written about this, they've covered almost not at all the roles of extremist groups and what happened that day. But then tonight, not only did they not carry it, they actually carried people who were actively trying to undercut the story that was being told. Tucker Carlson hosted this guy, Darren Beatty, who was kicked out of the Trump administration for ties to white nationalists, and who last year helped Tucker Carlson promote this idea that the entire thing was a false flag. That's who Tucker Carlson had on tonight on Fox News. So it wasn't just that they weren't covering it. They were actively elevating people who were lying about it last year and continue to lie about it to this day. It was embarrassing.
So Chris, I want you to weigh in on this as well, because Hannity said, I believe that these hearings are one-sided. He said that there was bias by omission, that the committee wasn't showing a whole lot more of the story. What is he referring to? What is the committee not showing that would be offensive for those who support Hannity and Fox News?
Well, I do not know, because I was here watching the wonderful coverage provided by NewsNation, which was great, and I enjoyed it. I was glad to be a part of it. I should disclose one more time that I have been called to be a witness for this committee. I will be appearing on Monday, just as dull disclosure. But, look, most of the people have already made their minds up on this question. Like most questions in American politics, we are a hyper-partisan we're in a hyper-partisan phase and a phase of hyper-negative partisanship. So I would imagine the people who tune in for Sean Hannity's show, if he had shown this, they wouldn't have watched. It wasn't like that they would have had to have watched. So what Fox is doing there and what Hannity's doing or what Carlson's doing, they're just chasing their audience and trying to give those folks what they want. And as we know, they're not trying to do journalism. They're not, because whatever they're trying to do, they're certainly not achieving that. What they're trying to do is entertain and keep their audience and move the product.
Hannity said at one point he was aggravated that there was intelligence that there was going to be, hell to pay on the Capitol that day, and that Nancy Pelosi and others didn't take action. That was one of the points he made. But thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.